The problem with Shadowlands. Let me be honest with you guys. Shadowlands has many problems. Let's see what this video is about.
Leveling is getting revamped. They're removing Warforge and Titan Forging. Shadowlands feels like it's shaping up to be sort of like a WoW 2.0. And honestly,
that's what people thought.
Kind of excited and hopeful for the future.
Let's introduce Thanos to the game and create an Infinity Gauntlet, and let's redeem Sylvanas.
Yeah, it's basically burning down.
So for almost 2 years, Shadowlands has been out, and I've made exactly one video talking about the lore from this new expansion. Mind you, Shadowlands is also, hands down, the most controversial expansion lore-wise that has retroactively altered the entirety of the Warcraft universe to fit the main antagonist's narrative, and also his motivations and actions are barely explained to players until the very end. So you might be...
And this is what pissed me so much off about the jailer. Like, we were not told what the jailer is really after, okay? So Sylvanas goes to Bolvar, defeats him, breaks the Helm of Domination, then we go to the Shadowlands. But what the heck is actually going on? I feel like we're just being given crumbs. We're not even being given a true lead or anything. Like, there is no red string that you follow and you just go along that one, right? Like, there's no at least simple explanation at the beginning. This is something that confused me about Shadowlands. And yeah, by the way, guys, if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content.
Asking why? Why, Platinum? Why have you just been ignoring all of this new stuff and making lore videos about stuff that hasn't been relevant for the last decade?
Because it's more interesting?
The reason is simple. I only like to make videos about things I like. I put a painful amount of time into the videos I make, and the reason why I do it is because I'm very passionate about them. And I just don't feel the same passion for a lot of...
You know what? I can actually relate to him, because I feel the same like Platinum WoW when it comes to making content. Like, I don't like to make something just because it could go viral or it's maybe so popular or up to date or something like that. Like, there are sometimes new games coming out that I know they are like super popular, but I don't want to review those because I don't find them myself interesting, for example. And that's the thing, like, that's the same when you are a gamer and you want to play games that you really want to play. Like, don't be forced by your friends to play a game that you don't enjoy, for example. Like, I had this one friend, for example, back in the day, and he was always playing simulation games, like flying simulation, train simulation, and this was during like my high school years, and this was like a long time ago, and I was like constantly being pushed into games, try this, try that, and I'm sorry, but I don't like these kind of games, so yeah, just go for what you enjoy. Don't let others tell you otherwise.
Don't get me wrong, there's cool stuff in Shadowlands. The Nathrius is cool. I think that retcon of the Dreadlords invading the cosmos and causing havoc is actually pretty cool too. I also really like the last boss of the Theater of Pain where she goes, "At long last, a worthy contender."
Yeah, that's cool.
The core of Shadowlands' conflict, its storytelling, and how it portrays its main characters is not only the expansion's biggest weakness, but really modern World of Warcraft's biggest weakness for the past 2 expansions. Let me explain. I cannot think of a media that has a slower moving narrative than World of Warcraft. I'm serious. WoW's narrative moves once every 6 months if we're lucky. I mean, sure, maybe books and TV shows take longer to come out, but their entire purpose is to tell a story. For World of Warcraft,
too many
is a
crumbs
to
but
the
no
actual
lead.
gameplay. To make matters worse, WoW's narrative has had a running theme for the last couple of expansions to leave people with huge cliffhangers or just not telling the story to keep people hooked. While this might keep people engaged for a short amount of time, when cliffhangers and vague allusions to a character's motivations and actions are all we get in a medium where a story is updated every 6 months, it can get very frustrating, confusing, or entirely forgettable. In terms of being forgettable, look at Vol'jin. So, at the start of the Legion expansion, Vol'jin died. For some reason, he made Sylvanas War Chief. And they're much better.
There's no explanation why.
This cinematic came out.
There's something I never understood. I think Bane would be probably like the best war chief at this moment. Why did he not pick Bane? This is something I didn't get. I would see really Bane as a war chief. I think he would actually unite the Horde and he would not mess up. Because he seems like a good character, right? So I never understood why Sylvanas was chosen.
Legion expansion, Vol'jin died. For some reason, he made Sylvanas war chief.
Why not Bane?
And there are much better candidates to be war chief. This cinematic came out August 9th, 2016. We would not find out that the Loa of Death Muzala whispered in Vol'jin's ear and told him to make Sylvanas war chief until Shadowlands launched, November 23rd, 2020. That's
So
4
Muzala
years.
was the one.
I could have gotten a college degree in that same amount of time this plot point was revealed. When you leave cliffhanger...
Wait, hold up. Muzala was behind that? I didn't even know that. So Muzala was whispering and pretending to be some sort of Loa or something for him. Like he like faked who he was probably and said make her war chief, make her war chief. So Muzala knew she would mess up probably.
2020. That's 4 years.
Holy
I could have
shit.
gotten a college degree in that same amount of time this plot point was revealed. When you leave cliffhangers for that long of a time, the impact of the final reveal is either nowhere near as impactful, or people just simply forget
the hype
plot in
died
the first
down.
place. Especially in a medium where the story is not the primary aspect of its design, and a million other things have happened since then. These cliffhangers might work in other narrative mediums, but for World of Warcraft, it can be confusing or outright frustrating because of how slowly it progresses. Sylvanas is a perfect example of where this gets frustrating. We have been strung along for the entirety of her story since Legion. That's 4 years. Now, people are willing to reject and hate whatever story she had in Shadowlands because it continued to be vague allusions to clever hints for another 2 years. Sure, the Sylvanas book coming out might explain some stuff, but that's like explaining the plot to a movie after the credits roll. And to add to this 100-mile cliffhanger...
But do players have that time? Like there's something I like heavily disagree here with. Like if you want to explain the lore of a game, you should not do this with books. Because you can't expect the average player to have time and the finances to buy every single freaking book and read through everything to understand what's going on in a game. Like look at Final Fantasy XIV, for example. We are giving the story with a red lead, with something we can like freaking follow, right? And we can follow through the story and understand everything that's freaking going on. Like, why can't we have this in freaking World of Warcraft, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why we must buy freaking books to understand what's going on. Like, I feel like what they should do, and also now for, like, newer players, they should add a unique time walking that summarizes the whole story that has happened so far in freaking World of Warcraft. Like, add per expansion 4 or 5 very important quests, for example, like the main most important quest. Then you do this kind of new player time walking, and you get 4 or 5 very important quests per expansion, and you level like this till max. It can be even more quests, doesn't matter. But we need to be given the lore through the game, not through books, to understand what's going on. Because other games can do it so well. Like Elder Scrolls Online does a very good job when it comes to lore. It explains it through questing and the main story quest, right? Final Fantasy XIV does the same job. So why can't WoW do this? Like, I hope Microsoft thinks about something like a way to summarize everything that has happened in World of Warcraft so far and give this to like new players. Because right now, like World of Warcraft, even though it's a good game, it's still like a top MMO, like top 5 most definitely. I find it very, very hard to get into as a new player. I feel like a lot of new players, they get lost in the story. They just play the game and then they're like, what the heck is going on? Why is there suddenly war between the Horde and the Alliance? Or what are we doing now in the Shadowlands? How did we get to BFA? What's the Legion doing? Why are they invading and stuff? Like, I think people are just getting so confused these days.
After the credits roll. And to add to this 100-mile cliffhanger, the main villain of this expansion is a walking cliffhanger, who never told us his true motivation or really gave any characterization to him at all until the final moments of the expansion. And even then, it was still kind of vague. And ended with another cliffhanger. And where these cliffhangers get really ugly is that it encourages fan speculation.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Fans come up with some insanely awesome theories, but the problem is, whatever happens in the story will never live up to the hype of fan theories. Now,
True.
I know, obviously, you can't just stop people
We sometimes
from
make
making
better
fun theories
stories.
about your game. But when your story is told in such a slow-moving medium, and you leave it with tons of cliffhangers, your fan base is just going to get disappointed that their grand theories are not what really happens again and again and again. And don't get me wrong, cliffhangers can work, but modern WoW, specifically Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands, have
Showed
both
that
lacked
it
a serious
can't.
thing in its narrative, a clear direction and conclusion. For the rest of this video, I'm going to be referencing Legion a lot because I think it's the best storytelling that has ever been done in World of Warcraft.
Yeah, Legion was
Let's start
really
with
good.
its clear direction.
Also the
What is
changes
Legion
that
about?
came to classes.
It's the Legion. The whole point of the expansion is to defeat the Legion, which is a really basic plot point, but I think that's to its benefit. Because it's such a clear plot point, they can spend a lot more of their finite amount of narrative resources.
I think it's actually good if you make something more simple, because it's more straightforward and your players can understand it better. If you make something so complex that nobody gets it, then it's just wasted. Wasted time, wasted potential.
On fleshing out characters rather than explaining its core narrative. We can travel to Suramar, we can learn about Illidan, we can get some Draenei backstory, all without the narrative needing to rely on janky, unsatisfying cliffhangers to move through its main story. Next, conclusion. The end of every patch in Legion had absolutely wonderful conclusions to a plotline while introducing a new one. Except for Emerald Nightmare, ignore that one. Nighthold, Gul'dan, a villain that was introduced in the previous expansion.
Yeah, and
Then we go
Illidan
back
was
to
the
Broken
one that
Shore,
took
a
him
place that
out.
we visited at the beginning of the expansion because we're stronger now and we have more allies. Tomb of Sargeras. We defeat Kil'jaeden and then get a final closure scene with the villain. And then Argus is teleported in front of us. In Taurus, we banish Sargeras and Illidan follows him, but then Sargeras stabs a giant sword in Azeroth.
And it's being stopped
Let me
then.
tell you, this is my favorite ending cinematic from the entire game.
It looks like the whole world
That
is about to
me
be
saying that
destroyed.
with rose-tinted
But it
goggles.
didn't work.
I remember when this first came out, I was soying around my room because of how cool this ending was. Yes, the sword being stabbed in Azeroth is a cliffhanger, but it's that conclusion of defeating Sargeras that we waited 6 months to see that makes it palpable. And while yes, later expansions might have had this rhythm of conclusion and an introduction to a new plotline, it lacks a lot of clear direction that didn't make it nearly as satisfying. And when you make a clear direction for your narrative, these awe-inspiring reveals have such a larger impact on a player base that might not be so in tune with your game's story. So what I'm trying to say is, WoW's narrative is at its best when it's kept stupid simple. WoW's MMO medium cannot.
That's the same with freaking Warcraft 3. Warcraft 3, like, I love Warcraft 3. This really shaped my freaking childhood, like my teenage years. Like, Warcraft 3 had a very, very simple story. It's orcs versus humans, right? They came through the portal, this and that. And then later on there was Arthurs, and some crazy necromancer appeared, some dreadlords appeared. There was some grain, and this grain, if people like eat that, they become infected, then they turn into freaking zombies. And stuff was just like pretty simple. Like, bad stuff turns humans into zombies. Zombies are not good. Where do those undead come from? A dreadlord and a necromancer is behind that. So we have to find those bad guys and freaking kill them. Like, it was so simple, right? Just orcs come through portal, fight against humans. Like, and this was what made Warcraft such a success. It was from a simple story. So I don't see, like, why or what gave them the inspiration to suddenly come up with something super complex when the simple stuff was already very good.
Supports
So
a
weird.
long drawn-out, complicated, character-driven saga because it just doesn't have the tools to tell it in an effective manner. And if it did, they'd have to make the entire focus of the game
FF14
being
did
about
such a good job with
storytelling
the story.
like other MMOs. So then, what makes me so passionate about WoW's lore in the first place?
The
What's
old
in
school
name?
lore.
The world. To
Yeah.
me, Blizzard has been able to create a universe that is second to none for the last 20 years. The world of Azeroth and its diverse races and factions are absolutely captivating to me. Even in the expansions that have poor main storylines, Blizzard has continued
Wait, why
to
Warlords
knock
of
it out
Draenor?
the park when it comes to
I
making
think
the
Warlords of Draenor was
captivating world
great.
bursting at the seams with character and passion. And that is where I find Shadowlands to fall short again, because while the world they built in this expansion is neat, it just lacks meaningful depth and that
Sadly,
familiar
yes.
Warcraft flair from recent expansions. It just feels artificial. The reason why I think Warcraft's world has been so captivating to me and many others over the years is mainly because of the game's design. It's a massively multiplayer online game, where you travel through this giant world. When the game plays to its strengths by telling stories where its world is the main character, it knocks it out of the park. This is the main reason why Suramar is one of my favorite zones in the game.
It looks nice
there,
yes.
They made an entire zone dedicated to telling a story, and over time you learn about its people, their history, and their culture. These types of stories resonate so well with players because it uses its strengths of being an MMO to their advantage, so you can feel more immersed within its story. Another example is Pandaria. Pretty much the entire expansion's purpose was to get into the nitty-gritty details of fleshing out this entirely new continent, explain its inhabitants, its history, and its place in the world, and for that reason, it has some of my favorite stories in WoW.
And I think actually Mists of Pandaria could be the biggest expansion when it comes to landscape, right? I feel like it's either Wrath of the Lich King or Mists of Pandaria that has like the biggest zone, right? Like it takes also quite a long time actually if you are playing in the time walking through Mists of Pandaria to get through zones and quest through and stuff, right? So I don't know, it's maybe like the biggest or the second biggest, who knows, expansion when it comes to land. Because we got like such many big zones.
If every future expansion was just going to a new place in the world and solely focusing on fleshing out its zones, rather than trying to follow a clumsy main character plot that gets updated every 6 months, I would be much happier. Okay, back to Shadowlands. Really, I don't have much to say about it that hasn't been said already. At best, it had one cool character that I hope returns, and at worst, it's been a frustrating, disappointing, retcon-filled mess that I hope we can move on from. Here's to hoping Blizzard can turn the ship around and focus on more grounded stories that focus on their fantastic world-building ability that I and many others
I have a great idea, guys. After this, I will
tell you. Last decade. Also in Legion, there were these audio dramas. These are a fucking amazing way to flesh out your narrative and give us insights into characters. Please make these again. Please, please.
Yeah, that would be great. No, but I'm gonna be honest, guys. Like, Shadowlands was really a letdown when it comes to expansions. Because now you have to always compare the story, for example, of like Legion with Shadowlands. And if you have already gotten like very good expansions or Wrath of the Lich King, and then like a new expansion comes out, like the players are also having some sort of expectation, like a certain level of expectation, right? Because, oh, this expansion was so good, the story was so deep. Or Mists of Pandaria, like the plot was very, very interesting that happened there. Warlords of Draenor taught us more about the origin of the Draenei and about the orcs, and we learned so much, like so much more lore and backstory of stuff. Like, and this is something that Shadowlands didn't give us that much. Same with like BFA. BFA was like a bit of a letdown, and then Shadowlands came, and then like the community got like pretty divided, and people like moved on to like other MMOs. Some people came back, some didn't, and it was just not a good time for World of Warcraft. Now things are getting a bit better, and now with like Shadowlands being at the end, like a lot of people are already hoping for a very cool Warcraft 10.0, and I think, you know what, maybe we are actually really getting Dragon Isles, because it would make sense and would be the smartest move for Blizzard to actually make an expansion called Dragon Isles. And I will tell you now why. Because there's also simplicity, right? Because that's a more simple plot. Like there's islands, and there's an island, and there are like freaking dragons, and they're having maybe like some simple problem, like, hey, our magic has been taken away because we sacrificed it to protect Azeroth or something, right? Like they can think of like some simple plot, because it's easier to make a more simple plot with Dragon Isles than with the Afterlife, aka Shadowlands. And there's no war between factions, it's just the dragons and the Dragon Isles, and there's some issue going on that we as players have to solve. Like, it's definitely way more simple than BFA, Horde versus Alliance, and Shadowlands, where we are in the Afterlife, where even though it's the Afterlife, you can still die. What is also weird. Like, this actually freaked me out. The Shadowlands, the Afterlife, and wait, what? You actually can die in the Afterlife too? What happens then to you? Like, it's weird, I think. Like, I don't know. But yeah, how do you guys feel about Shadowlands? Did you also feel like this was like a letdown from a lore perspective in the story? I feel like there have definitely been better WoW expansions. Just like Platinum WoW mentioned, like Legion was so good. I think Warlords of Draenor was really good. I really like that one, and Wrath of the Lich King, of course. There have been a couple of really good expansions, so it makes it probably also hard for like Blizzard to come up with something equivalent, right? So yeah. And yeah, if you guys are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. And I'd also really appreciate if you give this video a thumbs up. And I wish everyone a wonderful day. I will see you guys next time.